Hello my friends, today's video will be about creating HDR pictures on Panasonic Micro Four Thirds cameras. Sony version will be coming soon, but before we get into that I would like to quickly explain what is HDR and when you should use it. HDR means high dynamic range. The simplest explanation of what is dynamic range that I've come up with is that it is the range between the brightest part of the picture and the darkest part of the picture in which a camera or other device can capture a certain amount of details. So it basically tells you how much information can the camera capture in highlights and shadows at the same time or in one picture. In HDR photography, we obviously want that range to be the highest. So when should be some HDR techniques applied? First of all, it should be applied in high dynamic range situations. So when part of the frame is well lit, that can also be the sky, and part of the frame is in shadows or is just not well lit. Use of HDR also makes the picture look more realistic because the human eye can still capture much more of dynamic range than even the best cameras, even though cameras are catching up very quickly. So if you want to achieve certain realistic effect of something like silhouette against bright background, HDR is not suitable. Now we can move on to creating HDR pictures. There is a couple of ways to do that. The first one is in-camera software. In Panasonic cameras it is i.Dynamic function, which adjusts contrast and brightness, but that is a fake HDR since it doesn't capture any more details than regular photo. I have done full video about that. There is also in-camera HDR function which takes more pictures, but it only works for JPEGs. Another way is to enhance shadows and highlights from RAW files. I use this technique most often, but in this video we will use the most advanced technique of capturing high dynamic range, which is HDR bracketing. HDR bracketing is basically taking multiple shots of the same scene at different exposures. You can do it manually, but most of the cameras now can do in-camera bracketing, so the camera will automatically take multiple pictures and it changes exposure between them. Typically you want to have one properly exposed picture, one overexposed picture and one underexposed picture, but you can also take more than 3 pictures with some cameras. And once you have those pictures, you can use post-processing to combine those pictures into one picture containing more information. So first let's look at how to set the camera to use bracketing function. I will demonstrate it on Panasonic G85. Bracketing options are in Rec tab, which is the first one on page 2. Here you can select the bracketing type. We will use the first one, which is the exposure bracketing. And in more settings you can set step, which means how many pictures do you want the camera to take and how should it change the exposure between them. I will be using the last one, so the camera will take 7 pictures and it will overexpose and underexpose the pictures by as much as 3 steps. This setting lets you capture the most of dynamic range. Sequence sets the order in which the pictures are taken. I use the first option so that I know that the first picture is correctly exposed. Single shot setting determines whether you just need to press the shutter button once and the camera will take 7 pictures, or if you need to press the shutter 7 times. I use the first option where I only need to press the button once. I have also assigned this function to a custom button so that I can quickly access bracketing menu. Now that bracketing is set, you can proceed to take your pictures. Once you have taken your pictures, you need some software to put them together, and we will do that in Adobe Lightroom. So first of all, you need to import the pictures into your library. Once the pictures taken using the bracketing are important, you need to select them and press Ctrl H on Windows or Command H on the Mac. Lightroom will now create a preview of HDR picture. Here you have a couple of options. Auto align, I leave that on. That will align your pictures if there is some movement between the shots. Auto tune is what it says it is. It will try to adjust the picture. I leave it off because I like to do the post-processing myself. Then there is deghosting. If there is some movement in your pictures, deghosting takes care of that, and it basically neutralizes the movement to prevent ghosting in the picture. I usually set it to medium or high. You can experiment with it and the ghost overlay shows you where the movement is. Next you can click on merge and after some time new image will appear in your library and you can see that the picture is designated as HDR. Now we basically have a picture that can be adjusted in post to show the dynamic range. So we will probably want to set highlights and shadows. And here you can actually go plus 100 and minus 100, and other settings basically depend on your taste. So here's the single exposure shot. This is unedited RAW. Here is single exposure shot, but this is edited RAW. And finally, this is edited 7-step HDR. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope that you liked this video and that you have found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section, and see you next time.